Hello, Soundies. Welcome to our Sound for Video session. Today is the 29th of June, 2025. It's great to have you here. Hope you're all doing well. Those in the Northern Hemisphere, hope you're staying cool and, yeah, generally cool. Let's go to our agenda. And today we have just a few things that are going to kind of chill a little bit today. I hope that's helpful for you because we're going to be doing some ear training. Again, we had spent a while since we did some ear training. Always a helpful exercise if you work in any type of sound to do some ear training. I learned some time ago, I made a video on EQing dialogue, and I used, I taught the kind of the very common EQ tactic of boosting one of the parameters in a parametric equalizer and sweeping it back and forth and listening for really harsh things. And I think there are actually some problems with that approach. I think that ear training is really where it's at. I think if you can get that down and kind of get better and better and better with ear training, you're going to get better results when it comes to EQ and other things like that. So we're going to spend some time on that. Like always, this is a workshop which goes along with our courses over at school.learnlightandsound.com. And after we do our ear training, we also have some questions that were submitted ahead of time. So we'll get to those. And then we'll just hang out in the chat after that. So with that, let's start with our ear training. I am not going to show you. We can go back to the main camera for now. I'm not going to show you my screen. I'm just going to play an audio clip from an upcoming course we're working on, UHF Wireless Microphone Basics. And it sounds like this. Now, if you don't already own or know which wireless system you'd like to rent, this segment hopefully will help you make some of those decisions. I wish I could just say, go buy this one or go use this one, but we all know that's a bad idea because you have a specific budget, you have specific needs, specific types of projects you're working on. But let me tell you some of my thoughts and experiences with a variety of systems that I have used hands-on. And hopefully that'll give you some insights into how to choose the right system for you. So, okay, let's stop there. All right, so that's what we're working with. And let me just cut there. There we go. Okay, and then I'm just cleaning things up here, make it easier for us. Mute that. All right. So that was recorded with a lavalier microphone. As you could probably tell, relative to this microphone, it sounds quite different. And that's pretty typical for lavalier microphones. They will sound quite different than other mics. So let's go ahead and we're going to do the same thing. While I have the processing on that I apply, I will hold one finger up. When that processing is turned off, I will hold up the 0. So this is on, processing off. So raw audio, processed audio. Okay, so we'll go through a few rounds. Why is this called ear training V3? Well, we're going to start with the same things we typically do with some EQ or maybe some compression. I won't tell you ahead of time, but we might also throw some other things in there as well once we get a little farther into this. So let's start off with the basics here. Give me just a moment. And let's see here. Okay, I think that'll do it right there. All right, let's start with it on and select the range, set it to repeat, and that should do it. Here we go. Now, if you don't already own or know which wireless system you'd like to rent, this segment hopefully will help you make some of those decisions. I wish I could just say, go buy this one or go use this one, but we all know that's a bad idea because you have a specific budget, you have specific needs, specific types of projects you're working on. But let me tell you some of my thoughts and experiences with a variety of systems that I have used hands-on. And hopefully that'll give you some insights into how to choose the right system for you. So Now, if you don't already own or know which wireless system you'd like to rent, this segment hopefully will help you make some of those decisions. I wish I could just say, go buy this one or go use this one, but we all know that's a bad idea because you have a specific budget, you have specific needs, specific types of projects you're working on. But let me tell you some of my thoughts and experiences with a variety of systems that I have used hands-on, and hopefully that'll give you some insights into how to choose the right system for you. So, okay, go ahead and let us know in the chat what you think we did there. I'll give you a hint on the first one since we're going to start off a little easier. It's EQ of some sort, so I've equalized this at one frequency, kept it pretty straightforward. So what did you hear when it was on versus when it was off? And if you can't identify the frequency, that's okay too. Maybe just describe what you heard that was different. So we'll start there. And I'll give you just a moment here. I know there's some latency on the stream. We use the normal latency setting just so that if there are any bumps in the internet between me and you, hopefully the normal latency will smooth some of those bumps out. All right, Mark says, sounds like a boost at 2 kilohertz, 2000 hertz. Mike Partridge, processed seemed slightly compressed. Okay, interesting. Good, good. Thinner sound when applied from Yachty. Okay, good. Those are actually good guesses. Have any more coming in? Trickling in maybe?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Well, while we're waiting, I posted a new video on the Sennheiser EWDP SKP plug-on transmitter to use for boom microphones or handheld interview microphones or any XLR microphone for that matter. And that's over on my main channel if that's of interest to you. Pretty nice little transmitter. Okay, any other guesses roll in yet? Okay, we're going to go ahead and cut to the Mac then, and let's show you what we did here. All right, we applied an EQ curve. Specifically, we boosted 6 kilohertz by 6 dB. So what you were probably hearing was more sibilance when the EQ was on, and less sibilance when the EQ was off, because my sibilance sits between right around 5 and 6, or at least a good portion of the body of the sibilance sits around between 5 and 6K. So that was the first one. Good job, everybody. No compression yet. So we're probably going to do some of that as well. But let's come back to the main screen here. Let's get our next one queued up. Don't give up. If you don't get the right answer, stick with it. You'll start to get it. Also, use the best headphones you can possibly get. It's going to be really hard to do this like on a phone speakers or laptop speakers or anything like that. All right, so we're going to reset this here back to 0. Okay. Okay, and here we go. Now, if you don't already own or know which wireless system you'd like to rent, this segment hopefully will help you make some of those decisions. I wish I could just say, go buy this one or go use this one, but we all know that's a bad idea because you have a specific budget, you have specific needs, specific types of projects you're working on. But let me tell you some of my thoughts and experiences with a variety of systems that I have used hands-on, and hopefully that'll give you some insights into how to choose the right system for you. So now, if you don't already own or know which wireless system you'd like to rent, this segment hopefully will help you make some of those decisions. I wish I could just say, go buy this one or go use this one, but we all know that's a bad idea because you have a specific budget, you have specific needs, specific types of projects you're working on. But let me tell you some of my thoughts and experiences with a variety of systems that I have used hands-on, and hopefully that'll give you some insights into how to choose the right system for you. So, okay, go ahead and put your guess there in the chat. Again, another little change there. I'm trying to keep these changes very discrete. So I'm not going to pile a bunch of different things up at the same time, just one thing at a time. And so that was one thing at a time. Go ahead and let us know in the chat. And again, even if you don't know which frequency might be affected, if it is an EQ, or maybe just describe what you're hearing, what sounds different to you. So incidentally, this was recorded. I am not 100% sure what this was. It was a wireless. It was a lavalier. I can't remember if it was the Shure Twinplex TL48 or if it was a Sennheiser MKE2, but I'm pretty sure it was the Shure Twinplex based on the sound I'm hearing. All right, we have some quick guesses flowing in. It looks like bass boost around 300 to 500 hertz from DaVinci Girl. Thank you. I'm picking up a bass boost. Mike Partridge, very good, Mike. Sounds a tad bit darker. That's a good way to describe it too, actually, because yeah, good. Sounded more nasal in character. Ooh, okay, good. Thanks for those guesses. Gets a bit more muddy with the boost. Ah, okay, yes. From DaVinci Girl, thanks for that. Udo says bell cut at 500 hertz. Isn't that the interesting thing about EQ is that you can do a cut and at one frequency and it will sound like the other frequencies have been boosted. So not a bad guess there, Udo. I liked finger up better on cell phone. I'm not sure what that means, but okay.
Maybe they're listening on a cell phone and it sounded better when you had it applied.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it. Okay, understood now. All right, well, let's cut to the Mac and I'll show you exactly what we did here. So on this one, we did a boost at 300 hertz. We boosted 5 dB. So this is an interesting frequency here. And a lot of times, especially when people record in small rooms, you'll find that there'll be resonances in this frequency. And you actually typically have to cut it a little bit to get things sounding less boxy. But yeah, it can emphasize the nasal quality of some voices like mine, depending on which microphone I'm using. And it could also sound like if you did a cut at 500 hertz, it could sound a little bit like a boost at 300 hertz. So possibly. So not a bad guess, Udo, there as well. Okay.
I think DaVinci Girl nailed it.
And DaVinci Girl wins the prize because you nailed it. Very good job. Good ears there. All right. Thanks, everybody, for jumping in on this. Let's try another one here. Go ahead and reset that one. Okay. No peeking. It's going to take me just a moment to get this set up here. Okay. And let's try this. Now, if you don't already own or know which wireless system you'd like to rent, this segment hopefully will help you make some of those decisions. I wish I could just say, go buy this one or go use this one, but we all know that's a bad idea because you have a specific budget, you have specific needs, specific types of projects you're working on. But let me tell you some of my thoughts and experiences with a variety of systems that I have used hands-on, and hopefully that'll give you some insights into how to choose the right system for you. So now, if you don't already own or know which wireless system you'd like to rent, this segment hopefully will help you make some of those decisions. I wish I could just say, go buy this one or go use this one, but we all know that's a bad idea because you have a specific budget, you have specific needs, specific types of projects you're working on. But let me tell you some of my thoughts and experiences with a variety of systems that I have used hands-on, and hopefully that'll give you some insights into how to choose the right system for you. So now, if you don't already own or know which wireless system you'd like to rent, This segment hopefully will help you make some of those decisions. Okay, that one's a little bit subtle. So again, do your best there. If you don't know exactly what the settings might have been, at least describe what you're hearing that's different. That's the first step to ear training and learning how to kind of identify these things. So go ahead and drop your best guess there in the chat, and we'll take a look at that and talk about what we did. All right. Lavaliers. I don't love them, but I love them, and I don't love them at the same time. It's an interesting relationship because they sound rather kind of funny right out of the recorder or the mix. But anyway, here we have some guesses. I'm not noticing much at all on this one. Sean and Victoria, I understand this one was pretty subtle, so we'll go back and play it again. Don't worry. It's better to my ears without, perhaps slight boost at 2.5K from Udo. Okay, good. Slight gain in upper mids. Okay. Compressor? Oh, maybe so. Maybe so. All right, we'll give folks just a couple more seconds here. Lavaliers, lavaliers is interesting. Always a job to kind of EQ them and getting them sounding their best at the end. All right, any others coming in? Not at the moment. Okay, let's cut over to the Mac and let me show you what we did here. It was indeed a compressor this time, so good job there. Let me go ahead and this was mild, so this one was a little tricky. Let's be clear. But let me go ahead and play some of it right now, and I'm going to adjust it too. I'm going to go more extreme and then back off a little bit again, just so you can hear the difference. And actually, what I'll do is I'll turn it on, then turn it off, and you can see visually when it's good when it's turning on and off. That's this little switch up here, incidentally. So I'll just turn that on and off. When it's orange, it's on. When it's gray, it's off. You'll be able to see how much gain reduction it's doing. We did a 2 dB of makeup gain, so that was the idea there, is just to kind of keep the, well, you should have heard a little bit, it should have been a little bit louder when it's on, just slightly. But let's go ahead and play it, and then what I'll do is, after I've done that a few times, I'll come back and really push the threshold down, so it'll get kind of extreme, and then back it off again so you can kind of attune your ears to that. So with that, here we go. I wish I could just say, go buy this one or go use this one, but we all know that's a bad idea because you have a specific budget, you have specific needs, specific types of projects you're working on. But let me tell you some of my thoughts and experiences with a variety of systems that I have used hands-on, and hopefully that'll give you some insights into how to choose the right system for you. So now, if you don't already own or know which wireless system you'd like to rent, this segment hopefully will help you make some of those decisions. I wish I could just say, go buy this one or go use this one, but we all know that's a bad idea because you have a specific budget, you have specific needs, specific types of projects you're working on. But let me tell you some of my thoughts and experiences with a variety of systems that I have used hands-on, and hopefully that'll give you some insights into how to choose the right system for you. So now, if you don't already own or know which wireless system you'd like to rent, this segment hopefully will help you make some of those decisions. I wish I could just say, go buy this one or go use this one, but we all know that's a bad idea because you have a specific budget, you have specific needs, specific types of projects you're working on. But let me tell you some of my thoughts and experiences with a variety of systems that I have used hands-on, and hopefully that'll give you some insights into how to choose the right system for you. So now, if you don't already own or know which wireless system you'd like to rent, this segment hopefully will help you make some of those decisions. I wish I could just say, go buy this one or go use this one, but we all know that's a bad idea because you have a specific budget, you have specific needs, specific types of projects you're working on. But let me tell you some of my thoughts and experiences with a variety of systems that I have used hands-on, And hopefully that'll give you some insights into how to choose the right system for you. Okay, so hopefully you got a sense for how that was working there as I drove that threshold way down. So we kind of had it at default was at well, not default, but we initially had it set at -18. So again, the idea here is that anytime the waveform goes up above -18, the compressor starts to engage and it starts to pull the amplitude down a little bit. We were using the makeup gain here because what's really important here is that when you're doing comparisons of before and after, it's best if you can keep the perceived volume the same, because then you can hear the tonal differences. So that's why I was adjusting this makeup gain as we were changing things. So as I pushed that threshold way down, well beyond -18, you could see that it was compressing almost constantly. And I had to boost the makeup a little bit so you could hear it at the same level. I also dropped the ratio down, so you notice that it sounded less compressed, even though it was still compressing at a ratio of 2:1 instead of 3:1. So I find that with dialogue, the hardest I usually compress dialogue for spoken word content is 4:1, but usually I stay even below, closer to 3:1, and if I can, 2.5:1. It generally will sound more transparent, but there are a lot of other factors as well. But that was our example with the compressor. So let's pause there for just a second, go back out to the chat. Let's see, was anyone surprised by that? I think we had somebody who guessed correctly that it was indeed a compressor that time. Again, very subtle. I didn't expect anyone necessarily to get that. A boost around 12 kilohertz. It can have that effect, actually, Chris. That's an interesting thing that you bring up. Sometimes when you compress, the frequencies will start. I notice that sometimes if you just use a broadband compressor, which is what this is, it's compressing everything, all the frequencies with one single threshold. When you do that, sometimes some of those higher frequencies will start to sound like they're boosted a little bit. OG Kwasi, clothing rustle at the start always gets me. Yeah, it's definitely a lavalier. Since your voice is emphasizing mids, it sounds like a 2.5 to 3K boost to me. Again, you can start to get some of that with compression as well. It starts to emphasize these other frequencies as they get, with that makeup gain, as it comes up a little bit. And with a compressor, you'll notice here, this compressor doesn't show it. Let me see if I can find a compressor which does. I don't have one on hand that I can think of that does this, but sometime, a multiband compressor would probably show it, but so FabFilter would. Let's go see if we can pull in FabFilter here. Here it is. Okay. Let's see if we can set up multiple. I don't usually use this as a multi-band compressor, to be honest. It's got sidechain. Let's get a different one here. I don't seem to have one. Yeah, I don't have one on hand, but the idea is, let's go back to the main screen here. If you have a multiband compressor, you can set thresholds for different frequency ranges. So you're affecting them and set different thresholds at those different frequency ranges. And what you'll notice a lot of times, if I look at if I pull up the EQ here on this track, and let me just play this back a little bit, and watch to see where the most energy is, most amplitude. So now, if you don't already own or know which wireless system you'd like to rent, this segment hopefully will help you make some of those decisions. I wish I could just say, go buy this one or go use this one, but we all know that's a bad idea because you have a specific budget. So if you look at it over time, like average over the entire clip, you'll notice there's probably quite a bit more energy down here in the lower frequencies and in the low mids. And so what happens is that those are the ones that are going to exceed the threshold in your compressor and are going to trigger it, and then it's going to, press down on those in particular. So depending on your settings, your attack, your release, so on and so forth, it can create different sounds. It can actually change the tonal character of the dialogue when you're doing that. So it's very interesting. Okay, let's try another one here. Oh, we've got something in the chat. 2.5 to 3 is my normal compressor when we're talking about ratio. Yeah, completely agree, Matt. Definitely with spoken word, for sure. So why using a compressor? Just using Dolby Atmos and no more need of Garsty compression. Not everyone's set up DaVinci Girl for mixing in Dolby or playback in Dolby Atmos. I hear what you're saying, and that's cool. But a lot of us are producing content for stereo and even mono. OTT can work the most easy, and it's free. If that's where your content is going. Why do you use a compressor without knee? In this case, okay, so let me back up. There is a knee setting. Let's go back and let me show you that. Pull up our compressor again. So currently I have no knee set. This is what Udo's asking about. Let me bring it down here so it's a little more obvious. When you add a knee, notice how this green line here starts to curve instead of just having this really hard change here. You can see it more if I change the ratio there. But you'll notice here when I increase the knee, you get kind of a smoother curve. And what that means is that the threshold is actually, even though I have the threshold set, in this case, kind of extreme, let me bring it back up. Say we have the threshold set to -20, it's actually starting to compress somewhere down here in the -30 range, depending on how soft of a knee we create. And that can generally sound a little bit more natural. Here's a soft knee, here's a hard knee. So that's what Udo's talking about and asking about. And normally I think when I'm working with dialogue, I will usually use some knee. Not super extreme, but some knee. It usually helps kind of make a more transparent sound overall. In this case, I wanted it to be pretty obvious. It was subtle because the threshold was subtle, so I wanted to keep the knee hard so that people could hear that. Robert asks, does Resolve have a look-ahead compressor, free or paid version? A look-ahead compressor should have less compressor pumping. I don't know that there's one built in. Yeah, because it now has a side chain in the default channel compressor. We can go back to the Mac here, Danny. Let me see if they have another compressor. It's a good question that I don't know the answer to, Robert, but we might be able to find some of it right here. Oh, they do have a multi-band compressor here. Let's see if that has look ahead to it. I don't see. Threshold gain, limit, ratio, attack release. Master gain, Q. Does not look like it does. So as far as I'm aware, not that comes with it. And this is the paid version to answer your question, Robert. So it doesn't look like it does have one. And yes, look ahead can help as well. It can help, especially on the attack. Quick discussion on attack when you're talking about compression. With dialogue, what I find is if you set the attack at the lowest setting you possibly can so that it basically lets nothing through, it starts to engage right away. It's not that it won't let anything through, but it engages right away. What can happen is you can start to lose some clarity in the dialogue. It can start to sound, because the consonants will lose some of their power. They won't have that initial attack to them because you're compressing it as quickly as you possibly can. So it will sound a little duller and less articulate. So that's why I typically will use at least a couple of milliseconds, around a couple of milliseconds to let that come through and then start compressing from there. Okay. How are we doing on time? We're doing okay on time. I think it's time to go to the question and answer section. We had a couple that were sent in ahead of time, so let's go ahead and take a look at those. And you out in our community can help here. Let me just read these to you. I know it's really small. I have a MixPre 10.2 with noise assist. I have been recording in a noisy corporate presentation room and set the noise assist to -6 dB. It is AC vent noise that is the problem. The client thinks the noise level in the room is acceptable for the audience. No one complained, but the audio seemed a little crunchy to me. What setting is being used by most people in these situations? What kind of general guidelines do you use for noise assist? So if you've ever used noise assist or any sort of other live noise reduction, not talking about auto mixing and things like that, let's keep that separate for now, but any sort of single channel noise reduction processing, let us know what your experience has been. But I can tell you, Carl, in my case, I usually find that anything beyond about -4 dB, I've found it starts to impact the dialogue quite a bit. So I prefer not to go that far. The idea that I use with noise assist is that if I'm doing it live, or it's just honestly kind of more of a routine job where the client isn't paying a lot of money and I don't have a lot of time to do post-production based on what they're paying me, I'll use noise assist. And I'd found that anything beyond -4 is probably a little bit much. And I'm just trying to take the edge off. I'm not trying to get a pristine studio quality or studio sounding type of recording there. I'm just trying to get it so that the audience isn't completely pulled out of the video, is how I usually approach it. So if it's sounding crunchy to you at -6, you might back off a little bit, maybe try -4 and see how that sounds for you. Anyone else that has experience with real-time noise reduction for single channel, let us know below. Now, another thing that you can do, Carl, I don't know how many channels you're recording. You've got a MixPre 10.2, so you've got plenty of inputs to be recording multiple people. If you have multiple microphones going at the same time, that's when an auto mix can be super, super helpful in reducing the overall noise floor of the space that you're recording in. And it turns out that with the MixPre 10.2, if you're not already using it, you could potentially look into the Mix Assist plugin. I know it costs some money, but it can help quite a lot, because if you have normally, well, people will talk over each other sometimes, but most of the time you have one person talking at a time. But the problem is if you have multiple microphones open at the same time, every microphone is capturing more of that room tone, more of that air conditioning vent noise. So what the Mix Assist does is it attenuates, or it basically turns the fader down on the microphones that are not currently being talked into, which is super helpful. So if that's what you're doing, that can also help. And it generally won't have the crunchy effect that Noise Assist has when it's applied fairly aggressively. All right, the next one is from Mike P. And Mike says, I have my latest acquisition is a Sennheiser MKH 8018. Exciting. Mike says, is a Dream shotgun superb bass response. My question is mid-side post. I've yet to try this and I'm looking for the ideal settings. So number one, for interior dialogue in mid-side mode, is there a way to minimize room reverberation? Well, yes, but it doesn't necessarily have to do with the microphone. I have found that microphone, the 8018, is very, very sensitive to bass pickup. So what you can do is potentially, and then I think what people often end up doing is they move the microphone a little farther away. But there are a few things you can do. Number one, you can keep it relatively close and apply a high-pass filter. So if your recorder has a high-pass filter, maybe experiment with doing that. That way, you're improving your signal-to-noise ratio by moving the microphone a little bit closer, but you're also rolling off some of that proximity effect that you get with that particular microphone, in particular, I should say. So that's the first thing. Also, with mid-side mode, I don't know if you're recording the dialogue specifically in mid-side or you're just using the mid-side mode and just using the center mic. I'm not sure, but if you're recording mid-side, the whole point is to record a stereo image, and the stereo image intentionally captures the space. That's part of it. That's what you're part of what you're trying to choose. So if you're looking for something which sounds like a more traditional shotgun microphone and you don't want to pick up the space as much, you want isolation and not ambiance, then just use the mid mic. Just use that first output from the microphone itself. So, and you'll get a little bit less room reverberation. You'll still get some of it, but then of course the other things have to do with the room itself. So hanging blankets, putting blankets over, you're using the center mic. Okay, thank you, Mike. That makes sense. Okay, yeah, so then it's going to be more about treating the room or positioning the microphone within the room so you can go around clapping, clapping, clapping to see where you're picking up the most reverberation and maybe position the mic that way. But otherwise, I think that's when blankets on hard surfaces, either desks, floors, walls, that'll help to reduce some of that reverberation. Second question, in XY wide mode, is it possible in post to expand the spectrum even more? There's not any sort of, you can use stereoizing plugins of various sorts to try and get a more extreme kind of stereo image, a wider stereo imaging. But the XY wide mode on the 8018 is, if you're in close proximity, it's not the widest sounding stereo imaging I've ever heard. That's why you have mid-side mode, so you can tweak it. And that's the beauty of the mid-side. In essence, I believe that the XY wide mode on the 8018 is actually just a mid-side recording with they're just fixing it. They're doing the decoding basically in the microphone itself and then just feeding that out to your recorder. So there's no way to tweak it like you would a mid-side recording, but you can try some of those stereo plugins just to see if that can change things. And then third, were you able to locate a mic shield to accommodate the adapter for exterior testing? Not yet, but Radius Windshields has released their mini altos in larger sizes now. So I need to contact them and see if they have a stereo cable for output for that. So, because I want to, obviously this is a stereo mic, so I need to do that. It's just something I need to check on, but I haven't found another one other than that just yet. I think the Sinellas are worth looking at. They're very expensive, of course, but they have a lot of different models for specific microphones and especially for specific stereo microphone setups. All right, then the final question from Mike is, Zoom recorders, do you feel their pre's are beyond prosumer level to, say, the Mix Pre's? Notwithstanding its build quality, the H5 Studio seems to fit the bill for low self-noise. I would say that the Zoom H5 Studio's preamps are, they're pretty good. They sound pretty close to the Mix Pre's. I don't think they're not spec'd exactly the same, and they may have some different characteristics, but they were pretty good. I was impressed by them. There's the Zoom F series preamplifiers, so I've used those quite a bit more, and they're really, really pretty close to the Mix Pre's. The Mix Pre's just sound a little smoother to me, and actually, what's interesting is the H5 Studio sounded kind of smooth to me, actually smoother than some of the early F series recorders. Actually, it's very subtle though. We're talking about tiny, tiny, tiny subtleties. But yeah, the H5 Studio sounds pretty good to me as far as preamps are concerned, Mike. All right, you might want to look at specs though. Let me just look at something here really quickly. Give me just a moment. Okay, let's go to Zoom Corp, and let's also go to Sound Devices. All right, we can switch on over to this. Let's go to the H5 Studio. Hello, there we go. Okay, let's learn more about the H5 Studio. Let's look at the specs and details. The things that I think that a lot of people don't necessarily realize, but here, for example, the maximum input level on the H5 is +4 dBu. And if you switch to line level, it can go up to +24 dBu. Here's the equivalent input noise, -127 dBu or less, measured in a specific way with an A weighting, it looks like. Let's go over to the sound devices. Let's go to our current products, Mix Pre. Let's look at the 3 specs. Hello, specs. Oh, here we go. Okay, audio inputs. All right. Maximum input level, plus 14 dBu. If you're going to be recording a lot of loud stuff, you might want to look at a Mix Pre instead of a Zoom H5 Studio, just FYI. Now, part of that is how you gain. It's your gain structure, and which microphones you're using. But those are kind of subtle differences that not everyone necessarily notices, but that can make a difference depending on what you're recording and which microphones you're using. So I will say this as well. The 8018, by the way, does not have extraordinarily high max sound pressure level capabilities, so it's not really the best microphone for really, really loud stuff. So keep that in mind as well. But yeah, overall, just for spoken words, certainly the H5 Studio seems great to me. All right. Those were the questions that were submitted ahead of time. We actually have one other that was so long I didn't put it in here. But let's pause and take a look at the chat, see if there's anything in the chat that we need to talk about before I go to this next question. Matt says, I use Noise Assist recording a podcast on a private jet, and it works fairly good. My setup is unique. Not sure it translates. Yeah. Wow, Matt, recording on a private jet, that's pretty cool. But yeah, I think what Noise Assist does do is it works really, really well on continuous noise. So air conditioning can be a good example of that, a private jet. And yeah, usually the way I think of it, and I think probably this is your experience as well, Matt, is that it's sort of a way to take the edge off. You're not going to eliminate all the noise, but it's a good way to take the edge off and make it so that the noise is not as distracting in most cases. So thanks for sharing.
This was back before, so there's a few phrases here.
Use Dolby Atmos and make a mix down. OTT from XFER.
Transfer.
This is the master. This is in the master, excuse me. Okay.
Yeah.
So you put that in the master bus. Got it. Okay.
There's some way back here.
There's a lot about Atmos. Maybe we need to have someone come on and teach about Atmos because I don't know enough about Atmos. Udo says, ear training is important, but I think it not less important to learn how to rely on visual tools, spectrum analyzers, etc., especially as your hearing changes over time. Oh, absolutely, Udo. Yeah, I think ear training is... Let me give you the context. Your point is completely valid, and I completely agree as well. And in fact, visual tools can help with ear training. You can use them to help you realize what it is that you're hearing. The reason I say that, I started off, and I didn't go into great detail about this, but when you're EQing anything, I think of it largely in the context of dialogue, because that's the type of recording I'm usually working on in post. When you hear something and you're like, that doesn't sound great, what's really helpful is to be able to listen and be able to, just by ear, say, I think I need to go take a look at this range of frequencies, just based on what I'm hearing. So for example, when I hear a lot of harshness in a voice, I'll often go to around 1 or 2 kilohertz, and I can boost just a little bit. That's part of the problem with that whole Bell method of finding bad frequencies with the EQ. That almost, if you go to YouTube and you look up EQ, how to EQ, 90-some% of the tutorials will show that method, which is where you go into a parametric equalizer, you take one parameter, you boost it up. Some of them are very vague about how much. I say no more than 9 dB. If you go more than 9, and even that may be too extreme, but boost it up and then sweep back and forth. And when you hear some something really, really harsh, that's where you need to cut. So this is for in the context of like cleaning up and doing the first parts of sweetening audio or taking care of problems. And that's okay, but that can lead to some false positives, and you can end up with 17 cuts throughout the spectrum, and then you listen to it and you're like, is that better? I don't know if that's better. So what I find is that if you can hear something, you're like, oh, I can describe that. That sounds really harsh to me in the midtones. And I might go to 1 kilohertz and bump it up 3 or 4 dB and sweep it back and forth between maybe 950 and 2,500 hertz. And if I can find a frequency in there, then it just gets me closer to where I need to be. And it also makes it so that I'm not relying on this kind of rote process that doesn't really take into account how it sounds, if that makes sense. So that's all I'm saying there is, yes, ear training's good. Yes, visual tools are good. Use them together in as much as you can. But I think it's helpful if you can develop some of that ear, because then it makes it easier for you. Mike Partridge, self-noise mic measurement. Is this the same as handling noise or overall distortion at high levels? No. So self-noise is usually noise made by the electronics in the microphone itself. So you'll have all the way from the microphone diaphragm through all of the circuitry within the microphone. That's the self-noise measurement. Or on the recorder, it's the self-noise made by the preamplifier and any of the circuitry within the recorder itself. So that's what the self-noise is. Handling noise is when you are handling the microphone, either touching it or you have it on a boom pole and you're moving the boom pole. That's handling noise. Or you have it on a stand of some sort and you bump the stand or you bump the mic, whatever, that's all handling noise. And then distortion at high levels, and normally the specification there, we can actually show you that. Let's see if we can find it on here. Max. Let's see if we can find it with SPL. Not on this one. Let's see if this one shows. They report it differently, it looks like.
Well, is it under a different part of the specs?
SPL. Here we go. For example, on the Zoom H5 Studio, it says a max sound pressure level or input of 140 dB SPL on the XY mic. So it's usually a microphone specification, not a recorder specification. That was my mistake. That's a microphone specification. So you won't normally see that on the recorder. That's why we didn't see it on the mix pre-specs. So that's I think the third thing that you're referring to there. And usually that's a measure of, depending on the manufacturer, and that's the max SPL is not like a standardized specification, so it's not always easy to compare one to the other. But normally what they do is they measure just total harmonic distortion, I believe at 1 kilohertz. And once it gets to 1%, that's when they say, okay, that's the max sound pressure level. You shouldn't go beyond that point. So that's how it's generally done, but not always. So Mark says, I have noticed that if there are any other devices between the mic input and the mix pre can affect the noise assist algorithm. -3 to -5 is the max I have used. Very good, Mark. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm interested to understand what you mean by other devices between the mic input and the mix pre. Are you talking about like cloud lifters and FET heads and stuff like that? Or are you talking about wireless? If you wouldn't mind clarifying, that's super interesting insight. Okay, why you like to use in mid-side mode to reduce the room reverberation? The way is to bring the fader down and add the room means reflections. Yeah, I think we covered that already. Mike, thanks again. You bet, Mike. Thanks for the question. Your excellent reviews make you a dangerous man for the planned budget. So sorry. Let me clarify something for you too, to help. I think you mentioned in the email your wife does not like me. But you called me a dangerous man, and saying as a compliment. I appreciate all that. But when I do the reviews, I'm not. My hope is that people watch the review. The hope is that the reviews are most helpful for people who are seriously already considering that piece of gear. And then they can get some insights from practical use from somebody like myself. That's all it is. I'm not that interested in, if it doesn't fit your needs, I'm not trying to convince you to buy things. So just as a matter of revenue, yes, we do have affiliate links, but that's not our primary income. Our primary income is actually from course sales. That's my goal is to approach it that way. So anyway, Danny says there's something else here. Devices like a DBX286S or other processors. Oh, okay, Mark, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. So if it's doing a bunch of processing already. Graham says, how would Noise Assist work if you are recording room tone? Well, maybe that might be a case where you want to turn Noise Assist off, actually. Or, I don't know, depends on how you're doing. See, the thing is with room tone is usually if you're going to do a full mix in post, right? Noise Assist is often used if you're doing live sound or very fast turnaround sound where you're not going to do a really in-depth kind of mix. So they're kind of two, in my mind at least, maybe there's a use case for it, but usually if I'm going to the trouble of recording room tone, it's because I'm going to do a mix in post. And if I'm using Noise Assist, it's probably because I'm not going to do a mix in post, or I'm going to do a super lightweight mix in post. So you'd have to experiment with that, I guess, to answer your question. Matt, as a live guy, you have Spectrum to look at, but it's live. But it's live. You just have to trust your ears. That's why they retire us old guys, as the ears are not what they used to be. Or maybe they need to retire old guys like me who can barely read because my eyesight's going bad. Yeah, there's by ear. Yeah, when you're doing it live, having the ear training is absolutely helpful. Being able to do that quickly. I remember being a 2A, an audio assistant at a music festival, and I probably have told this story before, so I apologize if you've heard it before. But we're in this really live room. Technically it was an old restored train roundhouse. Very cool building, concrete floors, brick walls, windows, hard metal doors, really cool space, but audio-wise, it was a disaster. And they brought this traditional Irish band in that had 5 or 6 pieces. I don't remember exactly. They were all mic'd up. They were going to be the headliner show for that night. I was working with the mixer there, and as soon as they started playing, there was deafening feedback, and so we had to stop everything really quickly. But what was this is years ago, by the way. This is before I had nearly as much training as I have or experience as I have now. And he pulled out the EQs, so he had some outboard EQs that he used. So we were using an old analog. Well, it wasn't old at the time. It was an analog Mackie mixer board, great board, but it only had 3 parameters for each channel. So you had your lows, mids, and highs, and that's all you had. So the way he approached it was he used these outboard EQs, and he was able to really quickly, he would just have each instrument play solo, and he kind of got each of them EQ'd a little bit. Then he had them playing together, and he was able to do a master EQ to help manage where all the frequencies were building up in the room through the PA system. And it was incredible to see how he was able to do that, and he did most of it by ear. So that's where the ear training is super, super helpful. Okay. Mike, would higher SPL measurement make the device better suited for live music events? Yes, it would. Absolutely. So I think that's part of what they were trying to achieve with the Zoom H5 Studio, actually, because I don't think the previous ones were that great at that. Previous handy recorders, I should say. All right, Matt says, give me Red Rocks Amphitheater, such a great place, unless the weather doesn't play nice. Yeah, that's the beauty about Red Rocks is it's outdoors. And so there's a local venue here called, is it still called USANA?
I think
USANA?
I don't know.
It's outdoors as well, and they've done a really, really nice job. Yeah, that does in some ways make the job of the mixer a little easier. All right, we have one other question that I need to get to. Do we have anything else in the chat? Okay, I'm just going to read this one because it's actually quite long. But this is from Michael. Michael has 2 questions, and Michael is doing some at-home professional work, so he's on Zoom calls quite a lot. And I won't go through all the details here, but he has a lighting question, and I'll answer that separately just because we're on a sound for video session. His second question is, I have been duly influenced by you in my choice of microphone and audio interface. It's likely obsolete by now. with the advent of 32-bit technology, but I did buy the Sound Devices USB Pre 2 interface and not noticing the provided cable until too late. I bought an AudioQuest USB 2 to USB 2 USB B to C cable to run from the USB Pre 2 to the Mac through a CalDigit hub. I bought the Sennheiser MKH8050 to use with it. Because the USB Pre 2 has no mounting points, he made a cage for it, which I don't think is relevant here to the question. The question is how to set the USB Pre 2 dip switches so that it works in this configuration. Dip switches must be the issue because the meter is not registering signal. The meter works. I test each time I connect the USB cable to the hub. I have to assume the mic and the XLR cable are working. So the short version is, for Michael, we need to go look. We need to go look at the documentation. It has been 10 years since I touched a Sound Devices USB Pre 2, but if you go to the products, actually, I think you may have to go to support. You can view downloads. It's going to ask you, and you can go over here to legacy products, and here's where you'll find the USB Pre 2. It'll be over here. You'll view the downloads. There's a user guide and some related, nope, nothing there. But you'll want to go and look at the user guide here. So that's where you're going to find the information. And if you do, we can make this, whoops, I don't need to download that, but now we have a copy. Let's just do a search for dip switch. Anyway, you'll want to go looking through that. We won't, actually, this is different. This is a different one than yours. You may have to contact support as well, but the documentation should get you what you need as far as which switches to change. I'm happy to help if you're able to get your hands on the documentation and you're still running into issues, let me know. Or Sound Devices support can help with that as well. All right, let's check in with the chat again. What else have we got going on? Anyone have some fun projects coming up? Anyone learn some big lessons in a hard way? Or learn some big lessons in a not so hard way? DaVinci Girl, we got a special training last Friday with Peter Gabriel in a private meeting, and Hans Martin Buff in Dieberg in front of the students. I guess I did ask if there are people from Germany. Very cool. Congratulations, that would be very fun. Peter Gabriel, I'm a little envious. I'm very happy for you too, DaVinci Girl, to be able to take a listen, learn from them. You have to use ribbon mics, and there is no feedback anymore, special when you have musicians that are not trained for a live mix sound check. Interesting.
Hard to keep them good.
Yeah. Matt says, I'm not a huge Rode fan, but for Zoom, I think the Streamer X is great. Cool. There you go. Some notes for from the community. Input there. All right. What's coming up next? We've got to wrap up this wireless microphone, UHF wireless microphone basics course. So Emma and I are working on that. Now it's all B-roll, and the initial edits are done, but it's all B-roll at this point. So, Mark, the USB Pre 2 can be found under their current products. Oh, my mistake. Very good. Thank you so much, Mark. I didn't realize that one was still in production. So if we come back over here, let's not choose a legacy product. USB Pre 2. There it is. Brilliant. Let's view the downloads there. And there we go. We've got even a firmware update. The last firmware update was in 2011. That is a solid product that has been running for years. But here you've got the user guide. And I do remember there being dip switches as well, which was a little bit funny. You don't see a lot of that anymore these days, but there we go, dip switch options. So this is where you're going to be looking, page 22. Let's call ourselves done with that. Let's go page down. Oh, it's not fast. One quick thing. Anyway, we won't bore you all with the details there, but this is where you'll find that. So take a look there. Hopefully that helps. I've been using DaVinci Resolve more and more. We edited today's video that went up on the main channel in DaVinci Resolve on a Mac Mini base model, and it worked really well. I was really quite impressed with it. So that was pretty cool. Just something to, we don't usually talk about computers a ton here, but maybe the days of buying the highest end Mac to do video it's really not necessary in many cases. It's certainly not for the videos of that scope, which are 10 minutes long and basically like a main talking head and some B-roll. So it's pretty straightforward. We're not doing any fusion or anything like that, but I really like having the DAW in the same app as the editing for the video and the coloring, by the way, while we're at it. So anyway, that's pretty cool. That was fun. All right, I think we're at time here. Get out there and make some great sound this week, and we'll talk to you again next week. Take care.